Okay, how can you generate power with your backhand? Well, that inside-out swing will give you more power because it increases the radius of your swing. The further you can hit the ball out away from your body, it will give you more power with the same energy output. The other thing is, once you get the racket back, when you get to this position, many players just fire the muscles forward, and that's difficult to do. It's kind of like trying to get an old car to go from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. It's difficult. So once you get to this position here, rotate the shoulders back this way. Pull the racket back. Get the racket moving. If you can get the racket moving 10 to 15 miles per hour back here, that's going to make your swing a lot faster. And remember, racket speed is what gives you power. So once you get to this position, don't just fire the muscles forward. You want to pull the racket back. Remember, you're going to come back, then where are you going to go? Down, the front foot's going to step out. Back, down, and then just throw the arm. The other thing is, you want to keep your hitting arm loose and relaxed. That's one of the keys to a good one-handed backhand. Your hitting arm and your shoulder have to be nice and loose and relaxed. Don't hold the racket too tight. You don't want white knuckles on this one. You want to hold the racket on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the tightest. Hold the racket at 3 or 4, nice and loose, and maybe you firm up just a little bit to 5 or 6 when you make contact. Now, to get the feeling of how loose you want your arm, just take an old racket and practice throwing the racket over the net. That's how loose you want your arm to be. So once you get to this position, remember, you're going to come back, rotate the shoulders, and then just throw the arm. Now, if you're swinging inside out, that racket should go fairly straight. Okay, so I'm going to just let this one fly here, because remember, if you're swinging inside out, then you can keep that racket on line. So let go of the racket right about the contact point and just let it fly. So here I'm going to let it go. From this position, I'm set, I'm ready to hit. I pull it back and let it go. That's the feeling you want, a nice loose arm. If your arm could come off at the shoulder and you're just going to throw your arm over the net, that's the feeling you want. That will help you generate more power on your backhand. Okay, remember, to generate power on your backhand, you have to learn how to rotate the shoulders and use the hitting shoulder as the hinge. Now remember, from the ready position, we get to this position here. Now many players, once they get here, just fire the muscles forward. Now it's tough, remember, because once you get to this point, the racket has come to a dead stop. And now you're trying to fire it forward. And that's tough to do. What you want to do is learn to rotate the shoulders and use the hitting shoulder as the hinge. So once you get to this position here, you're going to rotate the shoulders this way. Now notice how the racket comes into view behind my back. Can you see that racket coming into view there? And that's the rotating of the shoulders, okay? But I'm using my hitting shoulder as the hinge. When I pull that racket back, it's from the shoulder. I'm not using my elbow or my wrist. Okay, so remember, once you get to here, show the racket behind your back and then let it go. By the time the racket reaches this position here, the racket is moving about 10 to 15 miles per hour and picking up speed fast. Okay, I'm going to practice showing my racket now behind my back. If you notice, remember, you don't want to just stop here and then swing forward. You want to get the racket moving. Now notice here, now you can see the racket behind my back. See it back there? Then you just throw the arm. Now remember, when you practice this, you don't want to go, hey, there's the racket, stop, and then swing, because you're defeating the purpose. Remember, this movement here gets the racket moving. It's going to give you more power. By the time the racket reaches this position, the racket is going about 10 or 15 miles per hour and picking up speed fast. So that's the idea. Remember, show the racket behind the back. And when you do this, you have to pull the racket back from your shoulder. That's crucial. You don't want to bring it back from the elbow or use the wrist. Keep the hitting arm extended and pull the racket back from the shoulder. So just try and show your racket to your opponent on the other side, or if you're working with a pro, show the racket behind your back and then just let it go. Okay, here we go. I'm going to practice a few. I'm just trying to show the racket behind my back here.
Notice the hitting arm is extended, rotating at the shoulder as the racket comes into view behind my back.
Okay, another essential for power is to keep your hitting arm and your hitting shoulder loose and relaxed. Many players tighten up and they try and muscle the ball, but when you tighten up, it slows everything down. You get less racket speed. Less racket speed, consequently, you have less power. So just imagine if I was trying to throw my arm over the net. That's how loose you want to keep your hitting arm. Just keep it loose and relaxed at the shoulder and the whole arm relaxed and loose. If your arm were going to come off at the shoulder, just imagine you're trying to throw your arm over the net. That's the idea. You've got to keep it loose. And don't white knuckle the racket. You don't have to grip it so tight. On a scale of 1 to 10, you might only be holding it, let's say, at a 4. Okay, now once you get here, remember you just pull it back and throw your arm. Another good drill is to take an old racket. Just take an old racket and practice throwing the old racket over the net. That's how loose you want your arm to be on that one-handed backhand. That's really an essential ingredient. Okay, remember, to develop power on your backhand, you've got to keep that hitting arm loose. That's one of the essentials to a good backhand. Now, when you first try this, you may lose some control, but keep practicing it. Keep the arm loose. That's the feeling you want, and you'll really enjoy your backhand a lot more as well. Okay, I'm going to practice a few now, just keeping my arm loose and throwing the arm. I'm just imagining right now that I'm throwing my arm over the net. Here we go. Okay, throw the arm. That's the idea. And throw. Throw the arm. Keep the arm loose. Remember, once you get to here, then you're going to come back a little more and throw the arm. Keep it loose. That's the idea. The hitting shoulder and the hitting arm have to be relaxed and loose to develop a good backhand. So work on that. And in the beginning, if you lose control, don't worry about it. Stick with it. Keep the arm loose. You're really going to enjoy that backhand.